5 seconds. 3, 2, 1 time. It's the 7 o'clock meeting starts.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Thank you, Sierra, who the torch was passed to bring us to order at precisely 7 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. We open every session with a prayer. Wayne's here to do that for us tonight.
Hi, guys. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we could come together. Thank you for the word that you'll give us tonight, Lord. We thank you for your presence. We just ask, Lord, that we be lights for you as we go out into this world, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Wayne. Amen. Some of you that have just joined us in the last several months may wonder why we do a prayer different than maybe other meetings of other fellowships you go to. Pretty much everything we do is different than other meetings of other fellowships. You may have perceived that. And the reason we do it the way we do it is that we intend for you to have a different experience when you tune into what we're doing. And we've been doing it for a lot of years, and a lot of people have verified that they do have a different experience. And so far, it's been positive, so we keep doing it. So the 28th of May is a Wednesday. That is officially the day we'll move to Haven, which is a church community you will find on 59th Avenue and Cactus. If you want to drive by, you want to come by some Sunday and check it out, what the venue is going to be like. 10:30 is the service on Sunday morning. We will be at 7 o'clock Wednesday night, the 28th, and from then forward. Yes? So, and we'll get you more detail as we get closer and what have you. But because we're going to do some outreach to all the halfway houses and people. We're going to have a venue of about 1,000 seats, folks. So we expect Phoenix to show up and show out. Yeah. We're in step 12 tonight. So without going through some of the normal things, those of you who come from the Christian tradition, step 12 is basically the Great Commission. And if you don't come from that tradition, it's still the way we unpack. A lot of people think that we clean house in 4, but no, that's where we identify things in 4. Have you ever picked up the whole house and then sat it and all the stuff, the bags in the corner, and then didn't take them out? Anyone ever had stacks of trash? Okay. Well, yeah, if you do that long enough, the house will still stink. So the taking out of the trash is in carrying the message. Does that make sense? The big amends, the way we really get fit, the way we challenge our old ideas is through that selfless service to another. So we're going to start chapter 7, and it's a chapter called Working with Others. And they start out with some promises and conditions. See if you can identify some. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. Have you heard promise in that? Other activities fail. Jim pointed that out. Did you hear what he said? A lot of times people think promise is always positive. No, promise is just kind of like a guarantee. So yes, this is insurance against relapse into bad ways of thinking. Yes, there is insurance that you can get by intensive work with others. And yes, other activities will fail. And so you might want to ask yourself, because if there's people here that think our fellowship is our program. And our fellowships are just meeting places where people come together who may or may not be engaged in the manner of living described in the program. And it's okay if they're not, but we don't want anyone dying here out of lack of information. So how many of you have discovered what other activities might fail?
90 meetings in 90 days.
90 meetings in 90 days. Not a bad suggestion to get some habits established, but that's not manner of living. That's just accountability. Meeting makers make it. Probably for meeting makers making it, that's true. But if you're a meeting maker not making it, then all of a sudden I feel lied to. Right? Put the plug in the jug. Have you heard that? Any of you real drinkers? Because I never held on to a plug once I got it out of the jug. I mean, let's get real. We'll have no need of that. Okay, so all the other silly things we hear that are meant to be helpful but maybe a little bit distractive, nothing ensures immunity as intensive work with others, and I don't do effective work until I'm properly armed with the facts about myself. And that's why the manner of living is indicated, so I can get properly armed with facts about myself, yeah? All right, so then it goes on to say, this is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. What message? Other activities are going to fail. There's immunity possible with intensive work with others. See, if you're sitting out there and saying, I'll do my recovery on my own, I'm not going to ask for a sponsor or a mentor, you can, but it tends not to work as well. And it isn't about a sponsor or mentor telling you what to do. It's about showing you what they've done to get where they are, right? And the whole point is, because the all-inclusive nature of the steps, the minute you humble yourself to ask another person for help, you're already in step 12. So why are you skipping the whole ladder? Right? You're going to help them more than they're going to help you. But stay in the process. Does it make sense? All right. So carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Why? Yes, and I'm properly armed with the facts about myself. I know how delusional my thinking was. I knew how I was incapable of being honest with myself about anything. Yes, I knew how self-condemning I was, how full of guilt, shame, and remorse I was. I can feel it on you because I once wore it on me. Let's get it off of you. Right? All right, remember they're very ill. Life will take on new meaning. That's a pretty impactful promise. How many of you, in the throes of your addiction, just needed life to take on new meaning? Had no idea how to bring that about. How many of you have been sober a long time, still getting days where life needs to take on some new meaning? Hence the manner of living, right? It's never ever been about abstinence. It's been about awakened spirits. All right, to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends, this is an experience you must not miss. We know you'll not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. They use the words they mean, and they mean the words they say. Notice how they called that an experience and not a sight. How many of you have learned since your spiritual eyes are open, you see differently? Remember that vital sixth sense? How many of you know people by their spirit? How many of you run into people who, although you know them by their spirit, they don't know the spirit in them? Those are the ones you're supposed to wake up. Doesn't make sense. Some of you feeling that. Who's feeling? A lot of you are feeling that. That feeling, they're feeling, any of you listening to the broadcast, what you're feeling, that's the power we call God. That's revelatory power. That's inspirational power happening within you. All right, so perhaps you're not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. Do you think that's true? Could be, but the likelihood is we've been running and gunning with some, right? Okay, so you can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. And then they say, they'll be only too glad to assist you. Don't start out as an evangelist or a reformer. Why do they caution us about that? Yeah, because we all get a little zealous when we first discover something, and we're less effective than when people can discover it on us, right? When they talk about carrying the message, they're not talking about shouting it. They're talking about walking it out, you know. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You'll be handicapped if you arouse it. So that's what they learn. I'm less effective if I'm shouting at you before I meet you, right? So ministers and doctors are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish, but it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. This is an original example of peer effectiveness, right? And now the behavioral health field is really embracing peer models. But prior to AA, there's been peer models for thousands of years. That's what apprenticeships are based on, right? So what we're trying to say is we've always known somebody that knows a little more than me can save me from making mistakes I'd just soon not make. And that's what sponsorship or mentorship is all about. Not to tell you what you should do, not to learn dirty secrets about you, but to say, hey, look, man, a lot of traps out there. I can help you avoid the ones I've fallen in, right? All right, so to be helpful is our only aim. I'm going to go to, I'm going to read this one. I'm on page 90. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about it. So how would we do that?
Listen.
Ask questions. Introduce myself.
Listen to understand rather than respond.
Yeah.
Right? These are all skills that we have to grow in, right? Ask open-ended questions to see if we can get them talking about themselves.
Get in the car.
Sean kidnaps him. If he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. How many of you dipped your toe in the water, but you really didn't want to stop? Or you didn't want to stop and stay stopped? And you're really hoping you didn't run into anyone who knew you, right? So when we're ready. And when we're not ready, there's not much anyone can say. And I know there's a whole science to talking people into it, but I haven't seen the efficacy that would support that theory. This advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing that they're dealing with a sick person. If there is any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. You need this information to put yourself in his place to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. I went through that whole thing. So you guys that are getting ready to go out and help people, you men and women getting ready to go out and help people, this idea that we're not going to talk to the religious because I'm a recovery guy has got to stop. And this idea that we're going to stop, I'm not going to talk to a recovery person because I'm religious, has got to stop. We're seeking the same power. We're seeking the same redemption, and you're blocking your own redemption while you steal theirs. Stop it. We speak in two different languages. Learn to be bilingual. So I'm going to go over to page 91. And I'm in the middle of that page. It says, see your man alone if possible. How many of you working with people know that can be difficult?
Yes.
And how do we accomplish that?
Get in the car.
Yeah, you might be like Sean and try and kidnap him. But we might just sit by, instead of clicking up when we get to the meeting to hang out with our favorite homies, we might just stand back and watch who looks uncomfortable. Look who looks like somebody they would like to hear from someone who actually knew what was going on, that wasn't going to assume anything about them. They're there. I'll guarantee you there have been people I've known that were many years in recovery, absolutely lost. And all they wanted was someone to recognize that and come up and help wrap them up. So it isn't about how new you are. It's about how stuck you are. And there's a field of stuck. All of us have been stuck. Right? So it says, at first engage in general conversation. After a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. So what are your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences? Some people did. Some people could go long periods of time, but when they started, they couldn't stop. Some people, they were, all in or all out and under a bush.
More or less insane.
Yeah. You know, chain me up, lock me up, or put me down, because otherwise we're going after it, right? So, but the point is we're really not trying to tell them all these war stories. Again, how would I like to be approached if the roles were reversed? I'd like for them to understand how baffled I am. Right? That's all I just want someone who understands, because I don't even understand. Right? All right. And then once they're willing to speak of themselves, then we can address where they're at. Yes? So if he wishes to talk, let him do so. You'll thus get a better idea how you ought to proceed. How many of you have had someone tell you, I've been here before, I had 7 years once, and now, you know, I already know all the book and stuff, but I guess I got to start over. Well, yeah, you may know the book, but did you do anything it said? Because it's not about being able to quote the book. We got to do what it says. And if you don't do what it says, you're going to get what it tells you you're going to get. Because to a person, that's what we get. And if you find yourself reading this book and you don't think it applies to you, look up the definition of delusion. Nobody reads this book unless someone's pointed them in that direction. They used to hide these all over my house for me to see. I remember seeing one for the first time, and I go, geez, I didn't know Dad was so much more serious about his drinking. Anyway. If he's not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit. But say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. Why do they suggest that?
Because I have no idea.
You guys
Gotta build trust. Gotta build a relationship with them.
Yeah, there's a reason. We've got to spend a little more time letting them get to know us and us them. And to Lance's point, I'm not qualified to speak on how my recovery was accomplished. I was drunk and locked up and puking and in comas and out in jails and in institutions every day, no matter what. And then one day, pow, I wasn't that ever again. Now, I don't got a how-to on how that was accomplished. I can only tell you that it was. Right? And I can tell you who did it according to my experience. And it wasn't me. If he's in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. Can you talk about yourself without using disparaging terms to describe yourself? Have you gotten comfortable enough in your testimony to do that? And the reason, we're not legalists here, but when you're talking to somebody and describing yourself in disparaging terms, they're hearing you describe them. It's just the dynamic. You don't hear what I say, you hear what you think you heard me say. And so the idea is I need to be able to speak very clearly about what I was like. I was selfish, dishonest, I was inconsiderate, I was full of guilt, shame, and remorse. I could not stop doing harm to other people, and I could not stop doing harm to me. I desperately wanted to. I could manifest no outward will to show that. And then one day that all changed. And the thing that changed it was the encounter with this power that does that make sense? That now is engaging with you, right? And then I don't talk to them about all the deplorable stuff. All right, so if his mood is light, tell him numerous or humorous stories of your escapades. How many of you got some humorous stories of your escapade? Thank God, we got a room full of escapade people. How many of you got here and there was nothing funny? When I got to recovery this last time, there was nothing funny. So it wouldn't matter if you're laughing, you are not my people. So it was, it's incumbent on me to read that on people, because some of us are really depressed by the time we crawl in here, and we don't know what we're going to find. So be sensitive to what you're approaching, yeah? And then get him to tell some of his. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were and how you finally learned that you were sick. So I already gave you an example of that. How I finally learned that I was sick, quite frankly, is by doing what this book says. I always sort of suspected that this whole illness thing was silly. It was just a matter of poor choices, because that's what people told me. And now that I've been in the behavioral health world, and I know that mental illness is a real thing, and substance abuse disorder is a diagnosis that is in fact documentable. It's evidence-based. I was insane. I had courts declare me so when I argued with them. So true stuff. They took my license plate on a highway one time because I couldn't get insurance. I don't remember why I couldn't get insurance. But the cop took my license plate as if that somehow caused the vehicle not to run. It's a whole nother story. By the time I went to get my license back, I got like a picture of a license plate that I've drawn. Anyway, given an account of the struggles you made to stop, what are the struggles you made to stop? There was a whole room full of people, and I know it all in the sound of my voice, lots of struggles. Some of them very painful. We don't even want to bring them to consciousness, right? Okay, so we're going to talk to their pain until they give us their pain, because it's our job to carry their pain for them right now. The spirit in them is not awakened yet, right? So show them the mental twist, which leads to the first drink of a spree. So how many of you had some clean time, then had a spree? What was the mental twist? Or was it a series of?
It's going to work this time.
This time it's different.
I deserve
It's not. It's just for work.
It's gonna work this time.
Well, I think, see, here's the thing. Control's an illusion, right? And many of us pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. You'll probably start exhibiting controlling behavior before you start actively inducing chemicals. But you're going to find yourself restless, irritable, discontent, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we suggest you do this as we have done it in the chapter on alcoholism. So that would be chapter 3, more about alcoholism. And they talked about Jim, the car guy. Jim didn't even start drinking until he was 30 or something. But when he picked it up, he quickly was drinking beyond his ability to control it. And the car dealership that he owned, he lost due to his drinking. And by the time the story picks up, we see Jim going to work for the car dealership he once owned. Any of you ever had a promising career that you kind of walked away from? Let's call it walked away. Anyway, the story recounts that Jim's on his way to this job for a dealership he once owned, and he was a little agitated. And remember what I said? There's going to be some restlessness, some irritability, some discontent. Apparently, when he got to work, he had a few words with the boss. Nothing serious. So now he's sitting there a little bit restless, irritable, and discontent at the car dealership where people come to buy cars. And the thought comes to him, if I were to go out in the woods, I could probably find some people to buy cars. So he left the dealership and went to these woods where car buyers hang out that don't go to dealerships. And on his way to this 3-acre wood, he passed a roadside place. And oh, by the way, there was a bar. But that was not a problem because he'd gone there many times and he does not pick up no matter what. So he had a glass of milk and a sandwich. And then the thought came to him. How many of you have ever had a thought come to you? So there's the mental twist they're talking about. They want us to identify in ourselves. There's the mental twist. The thought came to him that if I put a shot of whiskey in another glass of milk and ordered another sandwich, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. And the experiment went so well that he had another. And another. And then eventually ended up in an asylum. So that's the story. And a lot of people say, I've never put whiskey in milk. Yes, but did you ever go down to the trap house just to show the fellows how good you were doing? Did you just go hang out at the pool hall because you were a pool player?
Yeah.
I know some people play pool. I'm just saying, if you're 2 days sober, you might not want to. Okay, so then it says that if he's alcoholic, he'll understand you at once. So without going into all the others, the jaywalker and all the different people, right? Let's just. So it says he'll match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. So if some of you started doing that, started coming up with your own thoughts, okay, now you're on the hook. We're about ready to set the hook. Does that make sense? So then it says if you're satisfied that he's a real alcoholic. So when did they define real alcoholic? 20, 21, right? Seldom mildly intoxicated, always more or less insanely drunk, a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yes? Okay. Begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. So if he's ready for this information, then he's ready for some truth. I understand that you now think that you're going to just stop doing what you've been doing and that it's all going to be good in a little while. And I once thought that too, but I don't think I'd have made the progress I've made had I not taken action. Here's the actions I took, and the result stands before you. And I'm happy to walk it out with you if you want to go. Right? All right. So show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. So you should be armed with the facts about yourself. How many of you had a reasonably good willpower in many areas, but with regard to chemicals, not so much? Okay. All right. So don't at this stage refer to this book unless he has seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusion. Why do they tell us that? Yeah, Denise said it doesn't matter. And not being callous, she said it doesn't matter. My opinion of how serious your condition is troubling me, not you. I had lots of people tell me I was dying. I just wanted to know the date.
Yeah.
Give me some information I can use, right? But I can tell them, look, I know that you're sitting there lying to yourself right now because I can feel you lying. And you ain't lying to me because you can't lie to me without my permission. But I'm just telling you, if you met me, you should probably listen for just a little bit longer. Because there's 7 billion of us on this rock. We don't all meet each other. We tend to meet the people we're supposed to meet. Anyway, if he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can if he's not too alcoholic. So we're not throwing him under the bus. We want them to convince us. You get that? I've told lots of people, look, you're not sick enough yet. Go get sick. Right? And then they want to talk some more.
Yeah.
So because if they've got a bunch of conditions, I watch it all the time on social media. I would like a sober living where I can take my blind dog and my gay brother and my mother-in-law. And I would like to be able to smoke marijuana there every third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. That sober living is not a sober living. But I can point you to a few houses in the Slope that are a lot like that. You'll be right at home. All right. So, in other words, if you got a lot of conditions on your wellness, you're not ready. And you may just need to talk to someone who knows that's nonsense. Or you may need to go test fly it a little bit. Either way, no harm, no foul. All right. So continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. So what are the conditions of body and mind which accompany alcoholism? Yeah, physical craving. Once I put it in my body, I experience a craving beyond my mental control. And then I've got an obsession, regardless of how bad my past has been. I cannot bring to consciousness with sufficient force the memory of suffering, humiliation of even a week or a month ago. I'm without defense, and off I go again. Right? Let's keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience Yeah, I'm not talking about theirs. I don't know anything about theirs. I mean, I can assume that we're similar because we met. But I'm only an expert in mine, and I'm an expert because I took the time to get armed with the facts about myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. We know about that, right? How many of us go to funerals all the time?
Oh, yeah. Progressive fatal disease.
Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it'll serve some good purpose, but you may talk to them about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. I can talk to you of hopelessness when I'm going to be an instrument of hope, right? I'm not going to leave you hopeless. What is the solution I offer? A process that's guaranteed to wake up the spirit within them. That's it. That's the solution. There is a spiritual awakening waiting for you. And you're going to have to do a little bit of digging into you. And then when you find out what a miracle you really are, you'll tell other people. Right? So you'll soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, the traits of an alcoholic. Right? When we compare notes, we sound very similar, especially if we're paying attention. If we're not trying to out-tell them, just explain, yep, been there, got the t-shirt. Yep. So much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he's become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question if he will. Now, guys, this is where we get stuck. If they're not asking, don't tell. They're not ready to receive it. And we get over anxious and we think we've got something to impart. No, we don't. No one can come except those the Father empowers. So the reality is they're going to ask, and that's the cue. And then it says, tell them exactly what happened to you. That's what I did earlier. Right? That's exactly what happened. Power came into me. And then it says, stress the spiritual feature freely. That's all we got, guys. We got to talk to them about it. And if they're prejudiced about certain aspects of spiritual development, then let's talk to their prejudice. There's a power in them that wants to live or they wouldn't be engaging you. And there's a power in them that wants to die, and he has no authority over me in this interaction. I'm not talking to him, right? The guy in you that wants to die, sit over there. We don't talk to the guy who wants to live. You come on out here. Let's walk this out, right? All right. So if the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic he does not have to agree with your conception of God. Why not? The power we're talking about is not a conception. It's an experience. And that experience will change your mind. I'm not an expert on the timing, but my experience is that it comes fairly quickly if you can be honest with yourself. The author said you need not be disconcerted, and they were talking to 50% of them were atheists or agnostics. Our experience changed our mind. Your experience will change your mind. And I'm so confident of it, you just do what you do, right? You do you, boo. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. Look, it's got to make sense. So let's stop telling people about doorknobs and light bulbs and groups of drunks. There's precise instructions. The power is found deep down inside of you. If you're a man, woman, or child, it's found within you. And we're going to awaken it. And that power, although in you, is not of you. And you'll know as you awaken because you'll think differently than you'll behave. I'm empowered to act kinder than I think many times. And the more I improve consciousness, the more intuitively I just go towards kindness, and I know how much radical change has been done in me because that was not my default. Does that make sense? The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. The spiritual principles you'll find are contained in the steps, and it's really about discerning our thoughts so that they don't get in the way of my service.
A lot of italics there.
Yeah. Yeah, the main thing, right? The main thing isn't about how many meetings you go to or who your lineage is. My lineage is simple. Adam, Christ, Holy Spirit. That's my lineage. When dealing with such a person, you'd better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. So we got to talk to people the way we talk. Nobody wants to hear a sermon. No one wants to hear a lecture, especially when we're not feeling good. But we would like to hear something solution-based, right? There's no use arousing prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. I'm unapologetic about my faith, and I'm indifferent, at least acting, about yours. If you're not a person of faith, that doesn't stop me from working with you. I am a person of faith. If you ask me why I believe the way I believe, because I've had so many profound experiences, it would be impossible for me to believe any other way. Don't raise such issues no matter what your own convictions are. Your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. His religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he's going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. So I've had many encounters with pastors and rabbis. And in every case, although they knew their books, they soon learned they weren't doing what they said. And so the reality was, I remember sitting with a pastor one time, and I could feel the Spirit all over him. And he's like, man, when you speak, you're speaking with authority. And I says, well, you're a religious man. What's that mean? And he goes, you know what it means. I go, I know, but you're the one saying it. You tell me what it means. Because in religious circles, when we say we're speaking with authority, they know it's the Spirit using me as an instrument to touch them, and it lights them up. And it's really disturbing when they're speaking directly to the Holy Spirit and they're wanting to condemn the messenger. So I've had those encounters. I've had encounters with rabbis, the same thing. I start talking to them out of Old Testament teachings and books that I do not know. And they said, how do you know all of that? Speaking to them out of, Jewish texts that only rabbinical training would teach. And I said, I don't. I already told you you weren't talking to me. So all these things have happened. So I'm just telling you, we run into all types. We're going to minister to all types. If they run into us, it's because they need someone to lift them up, not tell them, they're not a fit for our fellowships. All right, so I'm going to jump over to page 94. It says, outline the program of action, explaining how you made a self-appraisal. So how would I do that? It would help if I made a self-appraisal or two, and then I could tell them how I did it, couldn't I? And it says how you straightened out your past, and how would I tell them that? I probably got a list in my 4th step, got it refined in my 5th step, said a prayer in my 6th and 7th prayer and meditation, and then with that list in 8, I started going out and prosecuting those amends. And in fact, I'm still working on my amends in my message to you. Right? The big amends is putting my past to use for your salvation. Yes? And then it says, and why you're now endeavoring to be helpful to him. Still working on my amends. It's important for him to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. For that reason, I'm doing my 12th step, not yours. Right? You're going to need to do yours. When you ask for help, you started yours. Are you growing? Right? So actually, he may be helping you more than you're helping him. They want you in this book to find yourself at every phase of your development. You ever notice that? You read this when you were brand new, and you've been here now 20 years, and you're still reading it. What? When did they put that in there? Because it's testimony, and the revelation comes, and it's a whole different meaning, right? So make it plain that he's under no obligation to you, that you hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. Why would I hope that for him? If you don't take the power out for a walk, you're never going to know the reality of your anointing. You're not going to know, right? But go ahead. Oh. You're not going to clean house fully. You're not going to get the healing you need until you use your musty past to help another with it. I mean, it's all there for you, but you got to unravel it. So suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. We don't like to hear that early on, do we? A lot of us don't like to hear it ever. But the fact of the matter is, I gave up my right to act overtly selfishly when I died in my addiction and had to be raised to life because of this process and this path. And so whatever I think I'm entitled to, I'm wrong.
That stayed on the strap.
Yep. So make it clear that he's not under pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. And you should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he's helped you more than you've helped him. So see how they're speaking to you both.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? You know why they can do that? Because they were both. It's a book of past tense.
Sure.
And as they move into these higher consciousness steps, they talk in present tense of what they do now. But you're only so far up, but you're only 2 steps up the path from anybody. I don't care how long they were around. Right? All right. So if your talk has been sane, quiet, full of human understanding, you've perhaps made a friend. So they've talked a little bit about sane, quiet, and full of human understanding. Maybe you've disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. How many of you have been disturbed about the question of alcoholism? How many of you are more disturbed about its applicability to you? This is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. He'll be more likely to follow your suggestions. To a person, we're going to balk at something, right? And they give you clues. At some of these, we balked. Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all the program. Have you ever had someone give you a reason? Have you ever given someone else any reasons why you need not? Did anyone ever explain to you there is no all of the program? It's got to start, but it has no end. As long as there's a breath in my lungs, it's to be used to advocate for my brother and sister, period, full stop. That's it. So if I'm not still serving and lifting, then I've just stopped. So you may rebel at the thought of a drastic house cleaning, which requires discussion with other people. Do not contradict such views. We know some of it is ugly. What I do know is no matter how ugly it is, you and the power that made you already know. And I am indifferent other than I want to get the burden off of you. Does that make sense? So tell him that you once felt as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. Have you done this step yourself? Did you find some things that were disturbing to you, but really the telling them to somebody else, I just didn't want them to think about me like I thought about me. And I found out that I could quit thinking that way about me when I saw another man look at me and not think of me that way. And then that allowed me to tell somebody who needed to be lifted up, and pretty soon I don't think about it at all. That was the process that brought me here to this very moment. So on your first visit, tell him about the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. If he shows interest, lend him a copy of this book. So the book is named Alcoholics Anonymous. The fellowships were named Alcoholics Anonymous after the book. And a lot of people don't understand that. The fellowships were named after the book, not the other way around. So they were careful to differentiate fellowship from program, which is described in the book, that is also named Alcoholics Anonymous and is the namesake of the fellowships. Fellowships are named after AA, the book. And people don't know that. And if you don't believe me, go to the forward of the second edition, find out for yourself. We're not going there. So unless your friend wants to talk further about himself, do not wear out your welcome. Give him a chance to think it over. If you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. Sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so, but this is sometimes a mistake. So we don't want them driving too soon because they don't know where they're going. And we don't want them, most of us come here and we're desperate to have somebody show us some attention. And if I think that this is the answer you want to hear, so you'll keep showing me positive attention, I'm going to give you the answer, even though I have no intention of following it out. And then later when I let you down, it's another failure on my long list of failures. Right? So it's not about me being superior. It's like, chill, dude. I have no earnestness. I want you to move at the pace you will move. If you're going too slow, then I may prod you. But at least think what I'm talking to you about, because this is a serious decision. When we talk about giving our will and our life over, we're talking about giving our thoughts, and our breath over. And that's serious. So if he has trouble later, he's likely to say you rushed him. You'll be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for crusade or reform. If you want to drink, drink. I even tell people who say, well, look, I don't think I can stop right away. I said, okay, well, every time you get ready to go and do it, call me. Let's be accountable first, even if we can't be sober. Let's see if that works. Sometimes they just don't, they get feeling sheepish about it. Dude, you were going to just keep answering, weren't you? Yeah. Why wouldn't I? I talk to drunks all my life. Sometimes they make more sense than these people claiming sobriety. So never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Look, I can lay out the step process for you about as clearly as anyone I've ever heard. I'm not bragging. I've just been a lot of practice. So I'll lay them out for you. If you don't understand, I'll answer your question. If the person that's trying to lay them out for you doesn't understand it well enough, don't hold that against him. He just doesn't have the practice. Ask somebody else that can lay it out for you. Anyone that's earnestly trying to help you will find you someone that can lay it out or get on. We got a library of these going back 20 years. Pull one up. Show them how they worked with you. Offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him that if he wants to get well, you'll do anything to help. That's a promise that we can keep. A lot of times we say things that we don't keep. Like, you'll never have to feel this way again if you don't want to. How can I guarantee that? In my sobriety, I've felt hundreds of times worse than I felt in my last day drinking.
Yes.
But I didn't go anesthetize it because I had work to do.
No anesthesia.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah. I mean, I lost a child. I went to another child's sentencing, not once, but twice to the penitentiary. I lost my mother. I lost some very dear brothers in recovery. All of those things are good excuses to go anesthetize if you need an excuse. Me, I never needed an excuse. But I'm just telling you things. There were lots of times I felt worse than, and the reality is that's just life. Sometimes you're going to feel worse. But if you do want to get well, I'll walk through hell with you. That I can tell you. Right? All right. So I'm going to jump over to page 97. Yeah, I'm going to skip 96 tonight. Let's start talking about what I were told were the promises. It says, never avoid these responsibilities, but be sure you're doing the right thing if you assume them. So they were talking about, paying people's bills, helping them with housing, giving them a little money for bus fare, whatever, those types of things. We'll get asked to do that kind of stuff. But they want you to check in the spirit whether that's the right thing to do, right? We don't want them dependent on us. I also don't want them needlessly suffering when I can alleviate their suffering. Does that make sense? So helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. Now they're coming home with it. How many of you want a recovery built on stone and not sand? Yeah, because I don't want to go through it again, right? I don't want to go through that early part again. So a kindly act once in a while isn't enough. So I always like to say in our social media age, if whatever your service activity is such a significant event that it denotes a selfie, you're not doing enough of it. I mean, take all the pictures you want. Let's encourage people to be selfless, but there's nothing selfless about taking a selfie. Serve till it hurts. Make sense? For your good, not to please me. Who cares? I'm doing it too, whether you know it or not. You're more likely to run into me at 2 a.m. picking someone up from jail than you are to run into me in a freaking restaurant somewhere, because that's just the way it is. So you have to act a good Samaritan every day if need be. It may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interference with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. It may mean sharing your money and your home. counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to police courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums. Your telephone may jangle at any time of the day or night. Your wife may sometimes say she is neglected. A drunk may smash the furniture in your home or burn a mattress. You may have to fight with him if he's violent. Sometimes you'll have to call a doctor and administer sedatives under his direction. Another time, you may have to send for the police or an ambulance. Occasionally, you'll have to meet such conditions. So those are what I was told were the 12-step promises. They're really a job description. And what you really want to understand is if you'll see that, those are all the unpaid debts you owe. How many of you were in jails and asylums and someone you can't come up with the name of tried to carry a message to you? How many of you had to call someone in the middle of the night and woke them up with incoherent speech? How many of you had an ambulance summoned for you and had everyone scrambling in the middle of the night to come in? So that's the never-ending debt that we're paying. For all those people that came and did that for us, that's the debt I owe. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And so it says, though an alcoholic does not respond, there's no reason why you should neglect his family. You should continue to be friendly with them. So if the family has an interest and you're kind of giving them within reason, I mean, they've got to feel comfortable talking to you, and the family's got to be comfortable talking to you, and they've got to know that you're both conversing. Otherwise, you're going to get in another little pickle. Should they accept and practice spiritual principles, there's a much better chance that the head of the family will recover. And even though he continues to drink, the family will find life more bearable. Our manner of living works for everybody, and nobody living in a house with an addicted person is not afflicted by the sickness. In fact, I contend people living with me were sicker than me because I was freaking bizarre. And you had to be really nutty to put up with the crap I was doing. I'm not laughing. I mean, you weren't even safe. For the type of alcoholic who's able and willing to get well, charity in the ordinary sense of the word is little charity in the ordinary sense of the word is needed or wanted. The men who cry for money and shelter before conquering alcohol are on the wrong track. Yet we do go to great extremes to provide each other with these very things when such action is warranted. This may seem inconsistent, but we think it's not. It's not inconsistent. If I know you're doing everything you can and I have the means to make your step up a little bit easier, I'm going to do it because it was only entrusted to me to give to you anyway. It's just that simple. And if you're just trying to stay sick at everybody's expense, I'm not going to leave you sick. That's right. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. So it's not the matter of giving that's in question. Remember last week I told you we were going to talk about growing and understanding and effectiveness. And I told you when we got to here, we'd talk about what we're getting effective at. Well, here's the paragraph. It's not the matter of giving that's in question, but when and how to give. So there's another book that a lot of people studied that wrote this book. It says, give to everyone who asks of you. But not necessarily what they ask of you. Right? And there's many examples in that book. That often makes the difference between failure and success. The minute we put our work on a service plane, the alcoholic commences to rely upon our assistance rather than upon God. Power. He clamors for this or that, claiming he cannot master alcohol until his material needs are cared for. Nonsense. Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth. Job or no job, wife or no wife, we simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence upon other people ahead of dependence upon God. Power. Yeah, so the idea is we're focusing now on the experience of power. We've got to start growing in that and walking in the faith of that. And I can't tell you what a faith life looks like, but those of you who know it know it we walk by that faith and not by sight. And we just know that if you're doing everything you can, he will come along and make the difference. He always does. So it says, burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. So how do I burn the idea into their consciousness? Consciousness is an awareness of being aware. So I'm going to have to speak to them spirit to spirit, aren't I? And I need to be awake, and I need to be talking to that source in them. The only condition is he trust in God and clean house. We're going to get you unburdened. You're going to have to participate. And for you and you, right? All right. So I'm going to jump from there because we're going to run out of time. Page 100. This is an area that I think a lot of people have misunderstood over the years, and it's such profound truth in AA, but also biblically. So pay attention to what these guys are witnessing to, because I think it's important. First paragraph, both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. I've heard people teach this as you always having a new one in the steps, but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the new man within you. You got to walk day by day, consciously. Why did we go through all the trouble of learning pray, meditate, pray, pause when agitated or doubtful, all day as we go along? Because I'm going to try and grow in consciousness of this power in and on me. Does that make sense? And then they tell you this in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, notice that there's a condition. If you persist. They tell you some people don't persist. So how many of you want the most out of your recovery? Okay, so let's talk to you. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. Signs and wonders follow us, folks. The lame walk. The captives get set free. The blind see. Not by might, but by your spirit. Yes? Mm-hmm. So when we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. So I got one thing to close that. I got sober basically in a homeless shelter, not a pleasant place, and living intermittently in a car. And anyway, when that happens, when you get that destitute, you don't start getting worldly things back in a hurry, because there's a lot of devastation. But from the time that I was encountered and knew what had happened to me, I have never been the same. I have never lost hope in all the hopeless places I have been in 20-some years since that day. I have always known that as bad as it is, I'm going to see the other side. And I did not live that way before that. So I instantly saw different, even though my scenery didn't change for decades. That's my testimony. That's their testimony. Next week, we're in one. Thanks.